All right, everybody. Welcome back. The second to last talk for today. Now we have one of Red Hat's most renowned principal engineers here, the team lead for the OpenShift authorization and authentication stack. And I very, very much liked his intro slogan. Let me read that. He's a software engineer who enjoys things going 401 and 403. At least somebody got the joke. Thank you.
Thank you kindly. I like to be concise with my bios usually. My name is Stanislav Laznicka. I am a principal software engineer from Red Hat, and today I will be talking about bringing pod security admission to your Kubernetes distribution. A very long title. All right. So let me switch to my presentation. Is it? Oh yeah, it works. Great. So pod security admission. What is it? Let's start with the word admission itself, right? Admission is some kind of a system inside of a Kube API server that lets it decide whether an object of a given form, an API object, should be stored in the database or not, or whether it should mutate it or not. Pod security, well, let's just say that that describes us, all the parts that the pod can actually touch in our system, of the node that is running. And the pod security admission is actually a successor to previous pod security policies. That was a feature in Kubernetes, also, an admission feature that actually stayed in beta for a very long time. It had some perks that kind of made it behave a little weird in some situations because it was dynamic, and so the pod security admission is a newer feature. Like it's a successor to pod security policies, and it is supposed to replace it and to be the one replaced. So it actually reached stable version, and it actually runs in all of Kubernetes clusters nowadays, I believe by default, even though it's running in privileged mode, so you usually don't encounter it. What it does is, you have a cluster-wide configuration that can be that can be overridden on namespace level, which is a little bit different from the pod security policies, which they allowed assigning these policy objects to each users. And so we now have admission that is namespace grained, and at the very base of this admission, it revolves all around security profiles, basic security profiles. You have 3 of them. There's the restricted profile, which is like best security practices, most current, the thing all that you wish for. Then you have the baseline profile, which I like to think of as an empty security context profile level, which basically when you create a bot and you don't really specify much, it should run and it should be somewhat durable against all the known privilege escalations. And then you have the privilege profile, which just lets you do whatever you want. Each of these levels, like they like now we got the description, but some like the levels may also require some further admission checks. Like it's CSI inline volumes sounds great. Like this is allowed by all of the profiles, even in the restricted ones. But if you had, let's say, an NFS CSI driver that lets you lets any pod mount any part of the NFS file system, like and then read from it, write to it, you may not want that. So even though you have these security profiles, you may want to add a little bit more admission. Some more about the pod security admission that you should also know is that it operates in 3 modes. It's either it can be enforcing or well, it is enforcing client login, server login. You can set each of these. Like you can set a specific security profile to each of these, so you can be enforcing in, let's say, baseline in a baseline profile, and then you can be logging in a restricted and also also login on client and server in restricted. The client logging is happening, just from like kubectl commands. You would see a warning that actually happens in a response. You would get a warning header. The server login is logged into the audit logs. And a really good thing about all of this is that each of these modes can be versioned. So you can run enforcement like in n-1 version, whereas you run in login in the n version, and you see whether you are getting some violations or not. And this lets you roll out through enforcement versions. Okay, so now you know, or now you have at least a little vague idea what security mission is, and you would like to have that in your cluster, right? So what do you do? Or you would like to have that in your distribution. In my case, there's like thousands of clusters running around in the world, and yeah, I want them to be a little bit more secure. I want them to know what security levels they have. So. Step one is like, and I like to call this like, let's see how bad it is phase, right? Let's see what happens when I actually enable this feature, and so you start with login, right? So it only makes sense to have this kind of configuration. It's actually the one that I talked about, and you can see that I'm setting the enforcement level to privileged. I'm auditing on and warning on restricted levels, and this is enforced across the cluster, right? And so once I have this configuration, I somehow push it, or in my case, I would just open a pull request with this configuration, and I would see the CI running and creating clusters for me. And once I have those clusters, well, what do I do? Like, how do I actually get the information from the CI that something happened, something was violated? Luckily, in our CI, we pulled the audit logs, and so I've got this query which you can run from the directory with the audit logs, and you can see that the pod security admission actually annotates the events that cause some kind of pod security violation. And you can then pull all of these events from the audit logs, and you can make JQ just extract the information that you're interested in, and the most fine information that you actually get is the namespace of the where the violation happened, but also, and that is very handy, you're able to get the reason of the violation from the annotation of that event, and then we're sorting it out, and just, so that it is nicer. So yeah, this is actually a pretty useful query. I will have a link. I should have a link to these slides later, so you should be able to pull it. So, all right, you're logging now. It's also, so now is actually a good time to step back a little bit and think about, like, all right, so I have my own pod security now. Now what, I want these to be somewhat cooperating, right? And in this case, you are most likely going to have to synchronize labels and namespaces, right? So, like, you will have to go through the namespaces, see which pods can run in that namespace, probably given by the RBAC that allows service accounts to do something, and then you're going to have to label the namespaces. You probably want to do that even if you would like to just, even if you would just like to switch from your own pod security admission that you have, like, and I'm talking like generic pod security admission, right? Because you don't want to break people, right? In our case, like if I just said, oh, all right, we are using the pod security admission in restricted mode from now on, there would be a lot of trouble around the world, I'm sure, and well, that would all come down to me, and I would not be happy. and there will be other people that wouldn't be happy. So yeah, you want to kind of make this middle step between these two admissions, and or possibly you want to run them all together, but you want to be able to tell the users like, all right, in this namespace, this is actually the namespace that is using the policies that have been expressed as the most restricted by the upstream standards, right? That's also useful. And so what you'll probably do is you will just write a controller that maps your existing pod admission to each of the namespaces, and it will be labeled in namespaces. And as with any other controller, I would highly encourage you to use server-side apply. In this particular case, I'm not sure if you're familiar with server-side apply, but basically what it does, it allows you, and that's the feature that we're using here, it allows you kind of expressing ownership of a certain field of an API object, right? And that's useful here because we can check whether by any chance a user try to set a label, and like one of the labels for pod security admission, and we can think, oh, well, the user probably knows what they are doing, right? And so we are not going to rewrite it. We're going to trust the user, right? And so yeah, that's very, very useful when writing controls like this. All right. Now that you have a plan about your own pod security admission, and you have a plan to introduce the upstream pod security admission, it is time to actually communicate, and that's a big thing, because like you alone will not be able to make the move of your distribution, right? There are hundreds of people having their own thingies running in your cluster. They want to install operators, and just you need to communicate them that, you know, if you don't do anything, we'll probably break you, even though we are trying really hard not to. And you know, this actually, like the other people may come to you, and they will tell you about, you know, some things that you may not have thought about. And so this is very useful. And so, you know, try to do everything. Just email through the organization, do Slack announce, write posts, create presentations. But no matter what you do, in the end, there will be a PM that will come and say, "Oh, you broke us, you darn fellas. How could you?" And at that point, when this happens, it is really useful to say, well, you know, we kind of told you a year ago, like in this mail and this presentation and here, that this is going to happen, right? And so, but let's see what we can do with it. Let's kind of find a middle ground there. So yeah, communication, really important part when you have, you know, a huge distribution used by many, really useful. Also, you know, whenever you're communicating, it's also very helpful to explain how to identify violations of workloads that these people own, right? Because like they don't know. So like try to be expressive. Try to explain pretty much everything, because you know, the more questions there are that one person would ask, you're now talking to hundreds, and so like when there are many questions, that this could kind of destroy the whole effort. Right. So we now have a plan. We told everybody what we are doing. Time to start doing it, right? So at this point, you probably already fixed all of the violations in your default installation. In our case, our whole control plane is deployed as pods throughout the platform, and so this took quite some time. There have been like tens of repositories that we had to go through, and it's really useful, you know, when people actually know what you are doing. That you know, you suddenly start touching their security context of their pods, and you know, without them knowing like what and why you're doing that. That's where the communication was important, right? And so your default installation is not generating any violations. So it's time to kind of step up a little bit and create alerts, right? Because alert is something that some users, at least in our case, admins can see, and they can think, oh, I probably did something that I shouldn't have done, or somebody in the cluster did that, right? That's probably more useful than just having a metric somewhere, because nobody's really looking at random metrics throughout the cluster. I will talk about the telemetry part a little bit later, but this here is our query that we are using in our alerts. This is how we create our alerts. You can see that the pod security admission actually has exposes a metrics about its own operation. So we are actually able to get all the denies in the audit mode. You could probably get those in the client login, but we are more interested in the audit, because that's what we will be telling people. This is where you should get the information about what actually happened. We are only interested in pods in this case. This is interesting because if you had your own pod security admission, some kind of different pod security admission, it usually only works on pods, right? It doesn't mutate your deployments, and so the pod security admission actually can also raise violations on deployments or on different pod controllers, right? And so we are really only interested in pods in this case. We're not interested because pods are the thing that we might be mutating in the end. And I should also point out the OCP namespace, because that's a label that we added ourselves, just to help us a little bit, because otherwise you wouldn't really know what was happening in the cluster, or which pod actually failed. And that's why I was mentioning telemetry. When you have when you are collecting some data from some data from customers, we particularly are collecting some of the alerts, so that we are able to kind of proactively tell the customer, maybe your cluster will be breaking, and so we are collecting alerts, and that's helping us. But without this one label, we wouldn't know which workloads are installed. And yeah, so like we added this, but this is I should tell you this is very limited to just the namespaces that we consider our own, or namespaces that are used by our products. So that's that's like the platform namespaces like Cube System, Default, OpenShift prefix namespaces. We added this, and it's also quite interesting to point out, because whenever you're adding a label like this, you need to be thinking about label cardinality. This actually is a link to a pull request to Kubernetes, where they some versions ago they added a namespace label to I believe it was a root CA control publisher, which is pushing root CA into all the namespaces, and thanks to this label, the metrics grew and grew and grew in our test farm cluster until it caused a DOS by design in Prometheus. So yeah, be careful about label cardinality. And yeah, that's also one of the reasons that why we only care about the namespaces that we particularly own. Also, one interesting point about this whole metrics is you can see that we are watching for increases in the denies here, right? But the thing is, whenever you're updating from a nil value, that means you've got some uninitialized label here, and that's quite common, right? You don't know which namespace is going to be denied. When you're going from nil value to something, you actually the increase doesn't happen. Like it doesn't it doesn't tell you that an increase happened. So only the increase actually notifies only a value to value increase, which prove that this still works, but it kind of confused our QA folks, because they were like, oh, well, I created this one pod and nothing's happening. Well, you need to create them at least 2 or 3 times, so that the metrics value is already present, and so that you can observe the increase. Yeah. All right. So now none of your core platform workloads are raising any violations. You set up alerts so that you are able to observe what's happening out there in the wild, possibly also even in some clusters managed by your organization. And everything is fine and dandy, but if you've got time until the release, it's also really useful to or you want to introduce the pod security admission labels to your end-to-end tests, because the end-to-end tests, well, they kind of create workloads usually that do something, and well, luckily for us, the end-to-end tests are usually quite static, so what admission level they will be running in, and you may not want to wait for your controller to sync on that namespace, and so you just set it up statically, right? Actually, me and my team, we worked upstream on this part, and so I added a bunch of links that if you want and download the presentation, you'll be able to follow. And these describe some of the PRs where we introduced the labels to upstream end-to-end tests, so that they can run in more restrictive or like in whatever configuration there is. And this actually is an end-to-end helper that allows you retrieve restricted security context for your test pods. So that's also an interesting link. And so by default, the enforcement in upstream end-to-end test suite is restricted enforcement. And just lately, I actually made the upstream labels to be to use all of the labels, because originally it was just enforcement labels, but with our configuration and with the configuration that you would probably run, you would still see violations on the audit and warning level, because only the enforcement label was set, right? And so, yeah, this kind of helped. All right, my turn. So, all right, you got your testing done. Your platform is not doing is not raising violations. Alerts are there. What do you do now? Well, you kind of wait for a release, and you wait for customers to start upgrading to this version that you had, and that can take, I don't know, like 2 months maybe, and for that time you will probably not be doing much. But once that happens, you'll gladly run to your to your metrics, and then you'll be pulling the alerts, and you will be looking at, wait, what are the namespaces that were raising the violations out there in the wild, and you'll probably find that that there are many products inside of your organization, or that you haven't really thought about, and well, people are installing them in their clusters, and so you will go talk to other people. You'll fix their stuff, because well, they didn't know that this is happening, and you wait for the customers to actually upgrade all of these workloads as well, and you kind of wait for the percent of clusters that would otherwise fail to go to lower numbers than 40%, for example. However, right? Yeah, this doesn't happen immediately. Like you in one release you realize you forgot this and that, and you can't really add that in a like this .z version, because that would you don't like touching pod security admission is kind of a sensitive topic, because like if you do something wrong, you're going to break many clusters, and you don't want to do that. So you are waiting for the next release with your more changes, and yeah, there are just long waiting periods. What you will also do is, you have the alerts from the clusters in the wild, and you are wondering, damn, I don't know what they are doing in that cluster. I would really like to see what that is, so that I can help them, prevent the cluster possibly failing in the future. And so this is actually this may just as well be the first time that you actually go and talk to the customers directly. It was for us at least. Right? So that's that. And also, out there be monsters. You will see things that you were hoping never to see. You will see people using your platform in all the ways that your documentation tells them not to do, but still, it's going to happen. So, yeah. But it also is interesting, and then you need to take you need to kind of like you need to take that in mind, and maybe you will just have to change some of your assumptions, and then you will have to wait for the next upgraded version, so that you can work these changes in. And once that all of this is done, you finally get to enforce your dream security profile globally all around the cluster with, possibly some bot security admission label syncing. And yeah, I mean, well done. Product management is exciting. Your colleagues carry you on their hands, and the sales are skyrocketing. Yeah, everything is great and dandy. Yepers. So yeah, and that actually concludes my presentation for the most part. There are some, I would really like to thank my team who helped me carry this through. Sergiusz Urbaniak is actually one of the people who created the queries that you've seen through his presentation. Krzysztof Ostrowski, he is helping us greatly communicating with customers. Ilias is writing tests wildly. David helped us with some design decisions around things we did. Camila Macedo actually helped us really greatly communicate all of these changes and all of the possible vectors that could break someone throughout the organization. It's interesting. She was outside the team, but she really saw this as something that may be rather concerning to everyone, and so yeah, she helped. And Ben Paris is constantly supporting us with talking to other folks through the organization. All right. Here, hopefully, is a link to my presentation or to the Git repo that contains it, and that would be it. Yeah.
That works. Okay, perfect. Right on time. Thanks a million. Who of you guys had actually had the pleasure to enable pod security admission restricted mode on your clusters?
Nice.
1, 2, 3.
That's lovely. I'm happy to see that.
I guess we can all write books about the pleasure of of communicating with customers afterwards. We still have time for 1 or 2 more questions, so I think I see a hand over there, somewhere in the light.
Hi. So how does this will work with SCCs together?
Yes, it will. Yeah, that's actually the one slide where I was talking about synchronizing labels. We synchronize the labels based on RBAC that the service accounts have in the namespaces. Not only the RBAC, but also there are some legacy fields in SCCs, the users and groups. So we use that in order to determine what the security level of a namespace should be. and then we label the namespace accordingly.
Ah, so the user won't have to label the namespace, but the
Yeah.
SCC, based on the SCC, it will be labeled for
Yeah,
them.
I think it's quite important to note that modifying or updating namespaces in any way is considered a privileged action in Kubernetes generally, and so normal user would not be able to do it, and so we have this mechanism that actually does that for them.
What if they do? Which wins?
Well, if they do, they probably acquire the permissions somehow, and that's fine, right?
No, from a certain aspect that if the user says that, okay, I want to be like restricted because namespace needs to be restricted, but I forgot to, update my SCC, what will they see? Will the SCC win, or will the SCC be like?
It actually depends. We have the syncing mechanism done in such a way that you can either force the SCC synchronization, or you can just let the user set the label if like you can have them set the label, but by default there will be some label set, right? So thanks to the server-side apply, actually in the last version in 4.14, we are able to see that the user actually set a given label, and we will not override it unless they specifically ask us to.
Do we have any more questions? I think I saw, yeah, we have a hand over there.
So as I learned, there's opportunities you can have a Kubernetes cluster in a Kubernetes cluster. Does this work if I have on my main Kubernetes cluster that has all of the ones running inside of it that I can set pause security for this?
If you have a Kubernetes cluster inside of your Kubernetes cluster, meaning you are deploying control plane inside of your Kubernetes cluster, or you're deploying whole Kubernetes cluster inside?
I meant something like vCluster or something that
that's so yeah. I'm not 100% familiar with vCluster, but from what I was able to understand, it's some kind of virtual cluster inside of Kubernetes, right?
Yeah, I think so.
I guess that even in normal circumstances, it would have to work with SECs somehow, and so I like to think that these use cases are covered by the synchronization.
All right, I think then we're done. If you have any more questions, please feel free to ask Sander after the talk. We'll be having one last talk for KCD Austria on this stage, actually. In about 10 to 15 minutes, 3 p.m., we have Arthur here talking about the 4 common pitfalls when adopting Backstage. See you back then.